The King James Version Bible, is it inconsistent on how they use the name Jehovah? What persuaded me to make this video is the conversation I had with a person by the name of nikkie2christ. Now this person is most definitely hateful, biased, and prejudiced against Jehovah's Witnesses. She states on her webpage, "I am the youth ministry assistant. I also work with the prison ministry." Now with my conversation with her, that makes me afraid of what she is actually teaching those poor people, because she is living a fantasy King James Version only world. Based on my conversation with her, she takes the King James Version over the Hebrew and Greek texts. In other words, she thinks the King James Version Bible is infallible. Who also has this view is Barbsinclair. What caught my attention is a comment nikkie2christ had made regarding the divine name. She replied to a different individual who made a false claim that Jehovah is only in the Bible one time. And she commented, actually, the name Jehovah can be found 4 times in the King James Version. The problem is the Jehovah's Witnesses have incorrectly inserted the name Jehovah in their false New World Translation Bible at some obscure attempt to play down the deity of Jesus. I want you, the audience, to keep in mind that nikkie2christ have been bashing Jehovah's Witnesses with hateful and rude remarks, but this comment I couldn't let go. I replied, "Your comment regarding Jehovah's name is the most ignorant and offensive comment I've read from you on this post. You mentioned we incorrectly inserted Jehovah's name, but do you realize that Jehovah's name is in the Hebrew, YHWH, over 6,000 times alone in the Hebrew scriptures? So if the King James Version only has the name 4 times, that makes the King James Version has over 6,000 mistakes in the translation process." And then I also made a comment regarding 1 John 5:7. Now she made many comments like, "I think you have a mental problem anyway. I certainly don't believe one word you say." Staying true to her words, she didn't believe one word I said. To illustrate, she stated, "You are directly quoting Watchtower jargon. I don't need to take anyone. I don't need to ask anyone, nor will I take your word for it." This was referring to the term tetragram. She apparently believed Jehovah's Witnesses made up the tetragram. I told her the tetragram is not Watchtower jargon. In fact, even her buddy Barbsinclair had to correct her. But Barbsinclair showed her hateful feelings toward the name Jehovah by comments like this one. "The Watchtower name Jehovah is Roman Catholic Church jargon the Watchtower adopted." But look how she praises the King James Version, which Jehovah's name does appear. Anyone who debated Barbsinclair knows how inconsistent she is and how she contradicts herself. I mean, those two make 21 cross-check 21 and MCO for help look like scholars in comparison. nikkie2christ will not answer any of my questions, not even the most basic question, yes or no. Then comes along Barbsinclair misrepresenting what I'm saying. She stated, "Nikkie, DY is arguing man removed God's name in English translation." This was not my argument. Not that it has to be in English. If we were speaking in Spanish, I'll be saying Jehovah. Or if we were speaking in Arabic, I'll be saying Yahoo. And nikkie2christ should have corrected her, because I gave her different ways on how the tetragram could have been translated. But I honestly believe nikkie2christ didn't know what the topic was about, yet she seemed to make comments on something she knew nothing about. Barbsinclair continues, "Yet the manuscripts are Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Jehovah is not in any of them. It evolved in English." DY's English argument on God's original DY's English argument on God's original languages he choose are useless. DY's confounded stuck at Babel. That was not my position at all. She obviously ignored all those comments I made to nikkie2christ regarding the divine name. So after telling nikkie2christ that the removal of the divine name has nothing to do with theology, it's a historical fact that Jehovah's name was removed. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. Then Barbsinclair comes around again with her hatred toward Jehovah's name, stating, the factual truth, the pronouncement Yahweh, I think she probably means Yahweh, is superior to Jehovah, which is a misunderstanding of Hebrew. The name Jehovah traces to early Middle Ages and is a Roman Catholic traditional nickname for God. The Jehovah's Witnesses follow Roman Catholic tradition. The correct pronunciation wasn't my argument. The point I was making was regarding the name being removed from the King James Version, and she replied, honest answer, no, referring that the King James Version did not remove God's name. The King James Version English translation didn't remove anything from the manuscripts, nor could it. My friend, King James Version translators translated the Hebrew into English. Please, I pray you understand this point. The Hebrew manuscripts are still here, and the divine name is still in the Hebrew manuscripts. So if the Hebrew manuscript still has the divine name, and the King James Version has it only 4 times, wouldn't that contradict Barbsinclair's own comments? The King James Version English translation didn't remove anything from the manuscripts? Do you see how she contradicted herself? The argument wasn't the Hebrew manuscripts removed the divine name, it's the King James Version that removed the divine name thousands of times. But she said the King James Version didn't remove anything. Since we're talking about the name Jehovah, which is represented by the 4 Hebrew characters, they took out Jehovah or the tetragram and incorrectly translated it Lord Adonai or God Elohim. Let me demonstrate. In Psalms 83:18 in Hebrew, it reads, Viri ki ata shemik Yehovah libidik alivin al kal harish. The King James Version accurately translates this into English, that men may know that thou whose name alone is Jehovah are the most high over all the earth. Why is Jehovah inserted in this verse? The simple reason is because Jehovah is represented by the 4 Hebrew characters, YHWH. Another area where the divine name appears in the King James Version is in Isaiah chapter 12 verse 2, and in Hebrew it reads, Chene el isheviti abascha valachavcha ki yazi vizmuruth ya Yehovah vi hali li shava. The King James Version does an okay job on this verse because they are clearly not translating this verse accurately. King James translates it, Behold, God is my salvation. I would trust and not be afraid, for the Lord Jehovah is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. Let me show you how the New King James Version translates this verse. And you would think they will learn by now how to translate the divine name consistently. But the New King James Version reads, Behold, God is my salvation. I would trust and not be afraid, for Yah the Lord is my strength and song. He also has become my salvation. So the New King James Version accurately translates Yah, but then they incorrectly translates the tetragram as Lord. Nowhere in this verse does the word Lord Adonai appear.